Call this meeting to order. All right. Gives everybody a chance to read the minutes. Matt, do I have a motion to approve the meeting?
No, I have, we need to correct a mistake.
Okay.
On page 4, where it says, Ms. Easter, that there needs to be trees that are fast growing, not flat growing.
What paragraph?
What page?
Down towards about page 4.
First sentence,
Page 4? Okay.
Yeah, first sentence on the next to last.
first sentence, paragraph 4, page 4.
Okay.
Needs to be an amendment to the minutes.
Thank you.
I think there was another mistake, but I can't remember where it was.
I did read it 2 times. I apologize for not picking it up.
I can't believe nobody caught that, where it said flat growing trees. It should say fast growing trees.
We can approve the minutes as amended, yeah?
You can do amendment, approval of the amendment,
So can I get an amendment to
and get approval for the amendment.
approval? So thank you. You're helping me out. I appreciate that. Back for an amendment to change that one particular word and approve the minutes.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
We have a motion and we have a second. Thank you.
Is that the only one?
That's the only one I can find.
Okay, then you'll have to do the motion to approve the amended minutes.
Thank you. May I have a motion to approve the amended minutes?
Motion.
Second.
Second and third. All right. Perfect. Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Oh, I didn't find it.
All right. Do we have any guest speakers on the agenda? Not. Okay. I'd like to make a motion to put the Colson townhomes back on the agenda for March. May I have someone
Are you talking about putting them back on like they are, or,
to open it for further discussion?
okay, because maybe changes it to me.
Say that again?
So it would have to have some changes in it if it comes back. I
Just
don't
this,
want it to come back like it
Well,
was.
let's not discuss it for now, but I'd just like to have a motion to further discuss it in March.
Okay.
Anybody?
Motion.
So second?
Y'all done took a vote?
no, go ahead.
That has to be a motion to rescind.
Yep.
Oh, say that again?
Rescind, just like a motion to rescind the post, because I think there was action and legal error.
Oh, boy. You know, make me read something? Oh, Lordy. All right. So I apologize for what I need is a motion. This is the Robert's Rules of Order. I appreciate the coaching that I'm getting. So what I'll need is a motion to rescind that first, our prior voting. To reverse prior action by voting a motion to rescind. And then we would add it in there with a second motion, is that correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, let's try that again. Apologies. So may I have a motion to rescind, to reverse the prior action?
Motion.
We have that. And now I'd like another motion.
Wait, you gotta vote on it.
Oh, voting. Thank you. I'm just getting ahead of
It's
myself.
okay.
You're fine.
Okay. It's okay. You're doing great.
Thank you.
You're doing great.
Oh, I was so proud, professional.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Say
Aye.
aye.
All right, it's unanimous.
Yes, so we took a vote.
All right, we did. It's unanimous. Sorry to make you have to spell it unanimous. All right. And now we're going to have another motion to add the Colson Village to the next agenda
In March.
in March. Do I have that motion?
Motion.
Can y'all not hear him? You need to speak
I
up.
can't hear.
Okay, can you speak
So
up?
we have a motion to add the Colson Village townhomes to the discussion, to the agenda in March.
Motion.
We have a motion and a second.
So there's not going to be any discussion tonight about it?
Correct, that is correct.
Then we're going to be first.
And now may I have a vote?
Hey.
Yes.
And I think it's unanimous again. Thank you.
So it will be brought up on the March agenda.
So we'll further discuss it in March, thank you. Right. Our next business order is Mr. Brian Hallman. Do you want to wait for a couple minutes?
Y'all mind if I step out and try to call him, see if he goes?
That's a great idea. Thanks, Jared.
If he's too far out, just tell him to start around.
It's a heck of a traffic. You can't predict that traffic.
Yeah, because rain too.
Especially in Clarksville.
Is he coming from Colson?
Well, he's coming from Nashville, but I don't leave early enough, he'll be stuck somewhere.
I know you can take 24 hours.
One lane most time. So it's fair.
Worst part of the interstate is the state of Tennessee.
Yeah, Clarksville and Nashville.
We gotta do
It
something.
didn't used to be that. It didn't used to be that bad. It's like there's a lot more people driving on this thing.
Yes.
Thanks,
So we
Olivia.
have to step out.
Thank you, Mr. Parks. I don't have to be good. I got so much behind me, inside of me, and in front of me, and next to me.
He sees some bullet.
Okay?
He sees some bullet.
Okay. Not good.
Okay, all right, thank you. All right. All right, he's just pulling in.
Jeff, aren't you supposed to be somewhere?
I'll rush back. They got them all done, and so I'll rush back.
Did you get your hair plugs?
Yeah, got them one.
They look good.
Thank you, thank you. No ginger change.
Not yet.
Not yet.
I kind of felt sorry for a minute, Jack. Face real quick.
That's a rough level of humor right there. That's a rough level of humor. That's high school. I can't compete there. That might even be middle school level. Is that it? That's fierce.
What was changed on the minutes so that we had?
The word flat or fast.
Here's how we missed that, because we went over it like 10 times.
I know. How did I miss that?
It happens though.
It's when you spell the word, it's another word. If you get it wrong completely, it'll catch it every
Yeah,
time.
they'll just fix it to whatever
Right.
they think it ought to be. And growing trees doesn't mean flat. That didn't make any sense.
And I said, thank you, and I said, you're so very welcome. And you know what it put? You're so very ugly. And I,
Did you say it?
and yes, I said it. And I looked at it and I thought, I started crying and I called her and I said, that is not what I said.
Who did you send it to?
My ex-sister-in-law, I made a picture of her and the baby, and she said, thank you so much for the picture. And I said, you are so very ugly. It was supposed to be welcome. I said, you are so very welcome.
How do you get to?
I don't know. But I kept saying, oh my gosh, I had to call her. She was cracking up laughing. I was about to cry. I thought that's got to be the worst thing I've ever done in a really long time. Because it all kind of fit in, but it wasn't what I wanted to fit. You know?
I wouldn't build it.
Did you?
I
I'm blaming somebody. Because I didn't.
He owns them all.
I always, yes, he does. Her too.
And her too.
Her too.
He said there's good time when he's gonna do some decoration, like back over some stuff. The top said, you wanna make it sound, you gonna be okay?
I don't want to say this.
You wanna cut me apart?
We'll just go.
So it didn't matter.
They said they did say it was not the argument thing.
It was.
They did not, they said it's not the argument. So,
So it is. Must
we'll discuss it later. That ain't what I'm worried about now, those next things.
Is he here? Charles is here?
Yeah, he had to go visit the room.
Thank you.
I can dry with water.
Told you, lucky to get here by, because he come come all the way from Nashville.
Wow.
Maybe.
Especially with the weather, like, it was terrible coming back from Paris.
Clarksville, a little more.
Yeah, I
Up
got
to
from
there right
Clarksville
now.
earlier, and it was terrible.
Can you believe they're calling for an inch of snow
They won't stay.
tonight?
Well, they get that bypass for Dover around Clarksville.
That'll help out a bunch.
If they ever, you think they will,
Oh, yeah.
It's already been approved.
It's already been approved.
by the time I'm dead?
Well,
No, they may start here pretty quick.
The bypass thing.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And where's that gonna connect in?
374 to the other side, back up
I know, but where's that gonna connect on the other side?
Hilltop.
Hilltop area,
Oh,
come across the bridge.
It'd be nice.
There definitely needs to be another bridge over that river.
Need that 3 lanes.
I don't know why they don't-
To Nashville.
Get a 3-lane from Clarksville to Nashville.
They need more than
There's
3
a lot of
lanes.
room for it.
it needs it.
They need more like 6 lanes.
Access control, you can't have a full driveway.
I came back from Nashville last week, or week 4, I can't remember. And from Nashville to exit 11, 4 cars pulled over my shoulder, changing flat tires.
Yeah, that's terrible. Especially at night, and you can see it.
Good evening.
First and foremost, I need to apologize, so.
You're doing right, you did.
so we-
Thank you, sir.
so, thank you very much for your patience.
Thanks for coming. It's always- it's always-
Got room for it.
I'm gonna catch your breath first, you all.
Yes.
I'm ready to go.
Okay.
Thank you again for your patience. So one of the suggestions was that it might be good just to have a quick refresher, just a reminder on things. I know a lot of this is going to be things that everyone in this room knows, remembers, but sometimes it's good just to go through and do a quick reminder on things. Just periodically to refresh our memory and knowledge on some of these things too. So, just have the handouts here, and just I will talk through this a little bit. So just going to run through three topics. One will be sort of just reviewing the key documents that we use. Another one is just the Planning Commission meeting outline, and then finally a little bit about the role of the Board of Zoning Appeals. So I'm on to slide 3, key documents. So these are some of the key documents that shape your work as a planning commission. One is the Tennessee Code, another is the Dover Municipal Code, the zoning ordinance of Dover, Tennessee, subdivision regulations of Dover, Tennessee, the Dover Urban Growth Boundary Survey, and the Dover, Tennessee Major Thoroughfare Plan. It's just more list than anything else. So on slide 4, talk a little bit about Tennessee Code. And the image that I have on the right is, this is the whole section on public planning and housing, just to give a sense for what's generally covered. So Tennessee Code does a couple of important things, obviously. It provides the authority for much of the Planning Commission's work. It also provides guidelines. So for instance, there's information that is required for plats. There is clarification on how much time the Planning Commission has to review plats. That's another example of some of the guidelines they offer. Tennessee Code also offers some requirements. So one of the examples is the annual training requirement for council members, and I'm bound by that as well. So, and we're going to fulfill a portion of that tonight here, which is nice. Nothing to worry about. So the Tennessee Code does shape, obviously, the work of the Planning Commission, and so. If you have any questions, otherwise I'll just go through. If you have any questions or comments, or please feel free. So starting in slide 5, I just walk you through a little bit some of the key points on the zoning ordinance. And what this, I actually have an extra copy here if that'd be helpful. Once once worked for a guy where we had to produce binders, and, you know, we had a set number we had to give out, and his challenge was he'd always, oh, can you give us one more, can you give us one more, so we'll do 7 extra copies. So just walking through a little bit of the zoning ordinance, some of the important things in there, you know, the enactment, what's the authority and what's the authority that's granted the planning commission, and then also what's the purpose. So that talks about the hows and whys for the work of the planning commission. There's a section on definitions, and that's always a really good resource that can provide some good clarifications. And sometimes one of the things I run into is good to cross-check the definitions against other parts of zoning ordinance. Sometimes there's clarity, and every now and again there's contradiction. Another section of the zoning ordinance is the general provisions. So these are some of the key principles. So if you have a community with single-family homes, there's only one building per lot, and that helps drive why there's a need for a subdivision process. Some of the other key principles, just highlighting these, you know, the lots must abut a public street, there's access control, there's plot plan requirements, so that's sort of a nice segment of the zoning ordinance to know. Zoning ordinance part 2. You know, one of the key areas there is there's a section on supplemental provisions applying to specific districts. So this is where you'll find things like the parking requirements, you'll find the temporary use requirements, home occupation, signs and advertising, short-term rentals, and also some special cases, salvage yards, you know, telecommunications towers. Some of these things are a little bit unusual outside the norm. And again, too, I know this is a lot of review of what is already known, but, you know, just sort of good just to do a refresher periodically. Zoning ordinance obviously also has the zoning districts. Here in Dover, we have the residential, the R1, R2, R3, R4, and then MHP, I should have spelled that out, mobile home park, sorry. The commercial, the industrial, and then you also have the floodplain overlay. On the next section, in each of those districts, you're going to find a couple things, the uses, the ones that are permitted, and also the special exceptions. And special exceptions are uses that are, or also known as conditional uses. You know, for a number of the districts, it's pretty straightforward. Hey, you know, retail, can you put a bookstore in there? Or this is residential, all right, single-family homes. But then sometimes there are uses where a little more care needs to be taken or some additional conditions. And, you know, in the zoning code, this is where it spells out what those special cases are, and then those get reviewed by the BZA, so there's an additional step in there.
Can we go back just a minute on the
Yeah.
floodplain overlay?
Uh-huh.
Is there any guidelines for what can be built in a floodplain area?
Mm-hmm. So it's a very extensive thing, and just be careful on floodplain too. What we're referring to is the 100-year floodplain. Mm-hmm. So this is the area. 100-year flood means there's a 1% chance of that flood happening every year. There's a national flood insurance program, and they say, hey, if we're going to insure things, if you're going to be part of this, we're going to ask you as a community to also put things in your zoning ordinance that will cover items in the floodplain. So a lot of what's driving that is the flood insurance program saying, hey, these are the items you need to cover in the floodplain.
We built a new house in Harris County in Houston, in Texas, and they had a rule that we were in it was a 100-year floodplain, and we had to have a house as high as the middle of the road. Mm-hmm. It couldn't go down. It had to be at the same height as the middle of the road. We don't have that, do we?
Yes, I believe we do. So there's a base flood elevation. So where it's in the floodplain, it says, hey, if you are going to build in there, here are all the requirements that are part of that. And one of those is to be at least above the height of where the flooding would happen. And then a couple other stipulations too.
And here in our area, in some of the adjoining counties, of course, we have the FEMA flood maps, which U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, everybody gets together, and they set them guidelines on maps. So we actually have maps here to show if there's a floodplain area. And of course, the Corps of Engineers has 378, so everybody has to stay up above that 378. So that helps protect some people from getting in a floodplain.
Because I'm always thinking about these houses that where the driveway goes down like this. They're way below the road.
Oh, that would be a floodplain.
Well, it just depends.
They have to be on that elevation, which is it.
But we have maps here for, if there's ever a question on an area.
So if water came into the house because of that driveway like that, that would be called surface water. Any water that comes on ground level into the house.
And part of the planning process, thinking about resilient communities is trying to put infrastructure as much as possible in places where it would not be, in the floodplain.
Mhm.
So, we think a lot about that from a municipal standpoint, but also for private residents, that's important too.
Yeah.
And so the flood map too, that's something that on plats and site plans, we ask them, to identify anywhere on there that's part of the 100-year floodplain. So then it's clear as part of this body's decision making. And then they also have to provide the map number so that we can go back and double check and so. Oh, no, it's all good, it's all good. And I know I'm following in the footsteps of some great people. I work pretty closely with Amanda. I know Brian Collins work well. I read through a lot of his comments. I've actually met him, and so I know we're just starting out. So I'm coming from, hey, let me just be safe and maybe put some of these things down. And as we move forward. I'll be glad to pick some areas in greater detail. I know Amanda did a great job, with the chicken research and, some other items like that too, so.
We don't say that word no more.
Okay, sorry. The foul? Or-
Yeah.
So talk a little about in each district uses, but then also, the zoning district obviously will have your bulk standards. What is the small size lot you can have for that use in that district? What is the lot coverage? So you can't just put a building that occupies the whole lot, that sort of thing. Setbacks, the density. So in your commercial multifamily, how much can fit within that area and then the height limit. And then Part 5 in the zoning ordinance, one of the things I highlight is probably the exceptions and modifications. So dealing with, how do you deal with non-conforming uses where something has been there before the zoning code existed or before it changed in the zoning ordinance? How do you handle exceptions? And then a couple other important things, the absolute minimum lot size. So, can't have just a tiny minuscule lot. There's a basic limit. And the zero lot line requirements, so for duplexes, how do you handle those? Just get clarity on that. We're almost out of the zoning ordinance. And then the final important part, administration and enforcement. So this deals with, where does the permit process fit in? Where does the Board of Zoning Appeals, where do they fit in? We'll talk about Board of Zoning Appeals later. What that special exception process looks like. Variances. If there are times where maybe there's where we can say, hey, in this instance, there's a little bit of flexibility in this one particular case for very particular reasons. This is what that process looks like, and then what the process of amendment looks like. And then the next slide there, it's a lot less dramatic when it's pages. Just talking a little about site plans. So site plans typically used for commercial uses, industrial uses, multifamily. There's some other specific uses they're used for. And obviously that gives you as a planning commission an opportunity to review the layout, the placement of buildings, and also important information adequacy of items such as access and parking. Rezoning requests. And again, too, I know this is all refresher, but that's just good to check in on this periodically. So, as you're looking at rezoning requests, some of the factors that I usually consider, the context of the other uses that are around it, what's it going to look like when this comes in. is the nearby infrastructure appropriate? Is there water, is there sewer? What do the adjoining roads look like? And some of the key tools there, the comprehensive plan, I know it's been a little while since that's been updated, but, that helps to identify where do we want to channel growth? Where do we locate some uses that may have a greater impact? So let's line up things that are going to create traffic in areas where the roads are capable of handling it. And then the major thoroughfare plan, and that identifies classification of streets, minor, collector, and arterial. And then just, again, refresh, but, the process, planning commission will make its recommendation, but it's ultimately up to the development to make a final determination on a rezoning. So we're out of zoning subdivision regulations. So these are just the headers right out of the subdivision regulations. So there's a whole section here talking about, again, the purpose. Why do we have these things? What's the authority for them? What's the jurisdiction? What's the enforcement? They also have the definitions. There's a discussion of the plat approval process. Start with preliminary plat and what all's entailed in that, and move to a final plat, what all's entailed in that. Also, general requirements and design standards. So some communities will have design standards in a separate document. Here in Dover, as many other communities do, we include those in the subdivision regulations. So I know there were some questions last month about street design and some of those other things, so that's where a lot of that is found. And then it's important to know, before there can be approval of final plat, which is required for the builder or developer to do sales, the improvements have to be in place. And either they can be in place, or sometimes a bond can be accepted. And the bond just is a guarantee that those things will get done. Subdivision regulations also have discussion on exceptions and variances. So subdivision regulations, we often are working with these in terms of plats. The plat creates new legal lots. A lot of times for single-family detached, where the rule is one principal structure per lot, but sometimes you have commercial subdivision as well. Yep.
I just want to explain to them, some of them may not know, you get a plat off of your deed. Like if somebody's got a property that's 5 acres and they want to split that in half. Once it's split in half, then it's creating a plat instead of a deed, correct? So just so they, I don't know if everybody knew that or not, so.
Plats can also establish easements.
Right.
So sometimes they'll have an access easement to be able to get to a lot behind another one. And also can establish the right of way for a public road. And just talk a little bit about the plat process. The preliminary plat initially is reviewed by the planning commission. This is the proposed way they're looking to developers looking to subdivide land or, and or put in roads, that sort of thing. And then once that is approved, if it's approved, then the developer next submits construction drawings for review and permit. So moves over to Jeff's side of the house. And then once those improvements are completed, the developer then submits a final plat for planning commission review. And again, there could be bonding in some cases if developers isn't ready to complete certain improvements, and they post a bond to guarantee those improvements will be done. And developer can only sell lots after the final plat is approved. And you guys, I know, are all well versed in this. So, but just put it on paper and refresh. So, should have, sorry, error in formatting there. So obviously, you guys have been through so many of these. You guys know this by heart, I'm sure. But we have the call to order, the roll call, public comments, and that's again designed to try and have the public have their opportunity to speak up front. So then that way that frees up the planning commission to debate the items. Adopting the agenda, just confirming, hey, here's what we're talking about, and this can get important in things like plats and so too, which have a time on them. Adopt the minutes from the previous meeting, discussing old business, and have the note there, need to be careful with plats. That's from reference to old business because those are on a time clock, and this is an example of a state requirement. Once that plat is up for consideration, if there's no action on it within 60 days, it's considered approved. So that's one of the things I have to keep very close tabs on. That it doesn't stay in old business too long. New business, adjourn, and then most places, Robert's Rules of Order is the guideline they use for the procedural questions. And then just reviewing decisions, and really comes down to 4 of them. The easiest and cleanest is the approve. So saying, hey, this item, whether it's a site plan, a preliminary plat, or other item meets requirements and is appropriate. So if the planning commission just approves, if the planning commission approves something, if it's preliminary plat, next it's up to construction drawings and permits for site development, grading permits and so. Final plat, once that's approved, then the developer is in position to begin selling lots. And site plan, once that's approved, the next step is construction drawings and again, the permits like grading permits and so. So that's approved. Another option is approved conditionally, and just a refresher on this. So saying, hey, this is approved, but the applicant must meet conditions that are outlined by the planning commission. So some examples that are pretty typical. Hey, we're going to conditionally approve your preliminary plat, provided that you address the comments, the staff comments. So maybe there are a couple things on there that they left off a scale, or they left off the north arrow. Okay, we're generally good, but we need to make sure those things are addressed. So that's a great example of that. I had one recently where an item was conditionally approved, but there was a whole discussion on, hey, there's an area we're going to grant variance, but only if you do these things to ensure that there's adequate safety for this curve. So you need to put in lights, you need to put in sidewalks. So that's another example of a conditional approval. And it's very important that the motion must clearly articulate the conditions. Okay. Defer is an important one too. So this is a situation where we need additional information to be able to reach a decision. And a lot of times it's a situation where issues come up in the review process, or there's an incomplete plat or an incomplete site plan, and we need a little more time to review it. So what this does is it keeps the item on the agenda as old business. So at the next meeting, this will be one of those items that pops up in old business. And I just have a little note on there. I know we've talked about plats a little bit. Plats are unique because the state of Tennessee has a review clock for plats. So in that instance, a lot of times, and this is probably a discussion we want to check with Olivia as well, because there's some different views on it, but most of the time in that instance, a lot of times, if in a plat situation, if there's consent from that plat applicant, then that deferral it resets the clock essentially. And I know some places interpret it that way, some don't. So but that's just something that to be very careful on. And then finally, it may just be to disapprove. And so, just a couple things on that. It's important to provide the rationale for disapproval, so there's clarity that the reason is not capricious. It's not a situation where can't believe that guy wore a purple tie, or can't believe that lady likes Bichons. I do not like little dogs. I don't know. But, and then by giving that reason very, very clearly, then that shows, hey, here's the rationale for us saying no. There's a real specific reason for that, and that can become important too if later that there's a challenge where someone can come in and say, hey, was this disapproval for the wrong reason, and that's where it can be, well, all right, here are the reasons that were cited, and then there's clarity on what the real issue is. So the Board of Zoning Appeals. 3 key traditional roles, and these come right out of and these are driven by the Tennessee statutes a lot. So we have administrative review. So this is language right out of the ordinance. To hear and decide appeals where it is alleged by the appellant that there's an error in any order, requirement, permit, decision, determination, or refusal made by the building inspector or other administrative official in the carrying out or enforcement of any provision of this ordinance. So someone goes in for a permit, they're denied. They can go to the Board of Zoning Appeals then. Special exceptions. We talked earlier about special exceptions or conditional uses. To hear and decide applications for special exceptions as specified in this ordinance hear requests for interpretation of the zoning map and for decision on any special questions upon which Board of Zoning Appeals is authorized to pass. And then the final one, variances, to hear and decide applications for variances from the terms of this ordinance. And variances, again, Tennessee statute has some very specific conditions that are laid down that are also echoed in the ordinance for that, which is that next note. And then just another note too, Board of Zoning Appeals may have additional rules outlined in the zoning ordinance to clarify questions. So for instance, in your zoning ordinance, home occupations, the BZA weighs on that question. Had one recently in another community where parking, we had something that wasn't a hotel, it wasn't a boarding house, it wasn't a medical facility, so what was the parking? So Board of Zoning Appeals got that job of trying to figure out, hey, how much parking do we need for this facility? So the BZA a lot of times acts as its catch-all too sometimes. There's some of the things that aren't clear in the ordinance. Thank you again for your patience earlier this afternoon, and thanks for a chance to walk through this a little bit.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I need a motion to adjourn.
There you go.
What's that?
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second, all in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
I was waiting to hit you.
Okay. You died, everybody.
Think they won't get that.